Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Richie Morchoe, your host, and with us, Steeves,
How are you?
for the Long Hill Report. And it has been an interesting month.
That's, I guess you could describe it in a Confucian sense, yes.
The famous Chinese curse,
Yes.
may you live in interesting times. I hope they don't get it too interesting.
Yeah, me too.
We still have two wars going on.
Potentially a third.
But
I said potentially a third.
where's the potentially a third now?
Venezuela.
What?
Venezuela.
Oh, yes.
Considering they are amassing troops on the Guyanan border now. Brazil already has troops on the Guyanan border.
But Guyana has two borders.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Guyana, there's an area of the country, Essequibo.
It's called Essequibo. Yeah,
Essequibo.
Essequibo.
And actually, it's been disputed for a long time.
Almost 200 years.
I believe when it was for 100 years or so ago, we took the side of the Venezuelans.
Yeah.
That they had the right to that land. Well, guess what? That was then.
And this
is now. And I don't think we're really making any pronouncements yet. But
not officially, although the usual suspects in Washington are kind of making wishy-washy statements that it should be decided by the international community or some other nonsense that doesn't really say much. But the Guyanan government has sought assistance from, see if I can remember the list, Brazil, U.S., France, Britain, and has called on our Southern Command, which is already in South America, for troops of, well, exactly what support they're looking for, I'm not quite sure, but more than likely not, they'd be looking for troops and weapons, because, as I mentioned a second ago, the Venezuelan army is in the process of mobilizing on their border. Brazil has set up troops to their border to keep tabs on the situation. I'm not sure how exactly they'll get involved because they don't want it to spill over into Brazil, but they're also an ally of Guyana. So
they do have an alliance with Guyana?
I'm not clear on that. It's not clear who is allied in any of these situations down there. That's part of the problem. So you've got as you mentioned, the Essequibo territory. It's about 2/3 of the country of Guyana.
Yeah.
It's been claimed by Venezuela for 200 plus years.
Yeah, sparsely settled.
Very. It's like 150,000 people over like 60,000 square miles.
Now, you're not going to, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to be shocked by this. There's a lot of hydrocarbons involved.
And a bunch of other
gas and
too.
petroleum.
Yes. Yeah.
Wicked shocker. That if there were nothing there, if the land was dead and the offshore had no oil or gas under it, would anybody be talking?
No, probably not.
Probably the Venezuelans would still want it because they did claim it and all that. But
but they want it. They want it because of the oil and gas.
Oh,
of course,
yeah.
But of course, the Guyanan government gave a sweetheart deal to Exxon about in 2015, I think it was, when the big oil field was discovered, and now Exxon really wants to take advantage of it, and the biggest oil field is offshore.
Yeah.
But there's also a bunch of oil and gas and minerals on the land, and a lot of water, of course, being tropical. So they're all concerned about those kinds of flashpoints, and naturally, of course, we've got our government. I'm sure will be meddling. Exactly how at this point I don't know yet, but.
Well, it would be nice to see them not find a place that they really wanted to get involved with.
It would be nice.
It would be nice to see.
They haven't done it yet.
To see an agreement to find a commission to decide it that was truly impartial. If you want to go on, what is it, FanDuel, or what is it, Betting Kings? What's the thing that has
Oh, that. Okay, I know what you mean.
And see if you could place a bet on whether we'll do the right thing. I expect we're going to do the wrong thing.
Me too, unfortunately.
That is more or less the new trouble spot.
Yep.
The trouble spot du jour, maybe we call it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other two wars are ongoing. development in one, we may not give you money. You might not. And there's been noises that maybe Ukraine should negotiate. And the president is still saying, no, we're going to fight to the death. What do you mean? You're going into the trenches yourself?
Nope, of course not.
No, of course not.
Until you die. Then I can go home.
But the noises are out there that the war is over.
Well, I mean, for all practical purposes, it is.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that the Ukrainian forces are still getting massacred by the large numbers. Disproportionately compared, I mean, the Russians are dying, some of the Russians are dying too, but the losses are disproportionately on the Ukrainian side and have been all along.
It's an artillery war.
Yeah.
I mean, there are uses of drones and things like that, but it's basically an artillery war. And what will happen, however, someone's going to have to make peace. It may not be Zelensky. But if they do, and the deal is that everybody's saying is, okay, Russia will get to keep what it's taken, which is basically Russian-speaking areas. And then maybe we'll just have an end of the war and we'll have a peace.
Maybe.
But that is awful for Ukraine because Blackstone, Archer Daniels Midland, the big banks, they're all in there. They've all got deals where they own Ukraine.
In large parts, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But what Ukraine should do is get rid of Zelensky and say everything that happened after the coup is null and void.
That they probably should.
They
But
can.
I think one of the things that maybe, I saw something a couple days ago thinking about one of the things that might be going on is that it's possible, I suppose, that he may be trying to extend the war long enough to get rid of some of the neo-Nazis on the battlefield so they don't come after him.
Well,
How effective that is, I don't know.
well, he's
but
had supposedly had a snit with I can't pronounce the name.
Zelensky, his general?
With the head of the army.
Yeah.
So the head of the army, he's one person I don't think has been wearing the gear, the Azov.
No, not him.
The neo-Nazi
No, not
gear.
him.
So I don't know if that. I think I don't know if the Azov, the Nazi battalions, are on the front line still.
I honestly don't know how many of them survived left. I just saw that in passing as a reference. I've also seen references to the fact that a whole bunch of their current crop of soldiers that are on the front lines are basically untrained.
Well,
And they're Marines that can't swim, and other references to things like that. And that they're basically scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point. I mean, you figure it's not really a surprise considering half of their population fled when the war started, more or
oh
less.
yeah, all the smart people, said the men of military age, said, "Hey, I'm out of here."
Yeah.
Well, that was smart. That was
Let's say.
this was this was a setup to begin with.
Pretty much, yeah.
So.
Although I do think it's interesting and not surprising that they managed to cancel their election.
Yeah,
it was
they grabbed
Zelensky and
democracy.
Zelensky, I think his name is, the general. When the polls started showing that Zelensky was going to win, it's not a surprise. And Zelensky will probably, quite frankly, he'll probably make the same fate of every other idiot who's run countries well.
I think he'll bug out. He has a lot of property overseas.
He does. Yeah. I mean, that's certainly one of the alternatives, but it's also possible that somebody will get rid of him.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. We'll see.
No.
I'm sure he would like to disappear into obscurity if he can.
I don't know. I would have, if I were him, I would have got out now. I mean,
Well, yeah. I wouldn't have started the war in the first place if I were him. But I mean, he was being provoked to start it by a whole bunch of outside forces using him as a battering ram against Russia, and he had no chance in the first place.
well, he had run as a peace candidate.
I know.
And then this is a proxy war. I've never referred to it as anything but a proxy.
No, it always has been.
We pushed them into this. Nothing good was in store for Ukraine out of this.
No. Nothing good is in store for Palestine out of the current war, and their war either, at the rate they're going. And I think that the way our government is dealing with it, it may end up being in a situation where they will manage to alienate the Arab world and the Israelis and the liberal Jews and anybody who thinks Zionism is crazy and about half of the rest of the world. They're well on their way to doing that at this point.
That's quite a thing. That's quite a trick to be able to pull that off. It probably gets you in the Guinness Book
Of stupid records?
of records. I would not say stupid. Things are, we have a lot of people over there. Now we have, is it two carry groups or three?
At least two. There might be a third. We've got ships in the Red Sea. We've got ships all over all around the Arabian Peninsula, more or less. Yeah.
I remember. See, this is the wonderful thing about. Well, it's not a wonderful thing about being old. Is you remember what has gone before, and there are a few plus ça change moments.
Yeah.
Nobody expected, well, they say there might have been an expectation, what Hamas did. And tactically, it had its own brilliance. Nobody expected it. But it reminded me of Tet. Nobody expected Tet. We were saying, oh, we got them on the run now. And it just came out of nowhere and happened. And it was this reminded me quite a bit of it. But there's another thing that I remember from the Vietnam War, that before we even sent troops there, we sent an aircraft carrier.
Well, that's
and it
standard
docked
for
at
us.
Saigon Harbor, and the Viet Cong sank it.
Huh. Okay.
You never did you?
I'm not aware of that one. No.
What?
I'm not aware of that one.
That happened. It wasn't a huge aircraft
Yeah.
carrier, but I mean.
One of the old ones that they basically used for target practice.
No, it was in service.
Okay.
And it went into Saigon Harbor to show the flag. And I remember seeing a cartoon of Uncle Sam bravely showing the colors there, and then they sank it.
That's what happens to aircraft carriers.
Well, if remember the USS Cole. They're not going to dock. I'm assuming they're not crazy enough to dock these things.
Well, I would hope not, but I mean.
Well, where can you dock them? You're going to dock it off of.
Cyprus, maybe.
Well,
I've noticed.
I'm talking the ones in the Red Sea.
Oh yeah, well they don't have really anywhere to dock.
Well, they can dock.
Maybe Djibouti.
No, they can dock off Saudi Arabia. They probably won't. I don't know if they could. If they're docking facilities there, but I mean, this is a rich country.
I don't know. It is. And there's some evidence to show that the Yemeni missiles have gotten good enough that they have the range to hit them, and they have the range to get to Israel.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, and that Yemen seems to be actually kind of playing its cards close to the vest, because they're like just taking pot shots occasionally. They're not all out trying to go out all out and sink things. They're just trying to say, hey, we're still here. We're keeping an eye. You need to keep an eye on us now.
Well,
they just want to make sure that they're distracting the American forces that are in the Red Sea at this point, to remember we could open up another front if you keep playing these games.
And that's the whole thing. We're complaining that Iran, Syria, we have troops in Syria and in Iraq,
and they're getting attacked, and they're basically close to starting another war with Iraq.
Yeah, and so we're complaining that they're aggressing against us. Whoa.
We're there. We not supposed to be there.
What do you think? Do you realize what's going on?
We would do exactly the same thing if foreign powers, military forces were occupying our country.
Yeah, Yeah, and I would hope nobody would blame us.
I'm sure the media from the foreign country would certainly blame us.
Well, yeah.
But that's what our media is doing.
Of course.
So, but the world supports them for good reason, and the situation is just getting. I mean, I think for the Palestinians, the situation it keeps getting darker by the hour.
Yeah.
For a whole slew of reasons. I mean, the latest is that they're trying to come up with this scam to say, oh, it's humanitarian to force them all out to all of these other countries that they don't actually, have homes in.
Nobody believes them.
And claim that that's not a violation of international law when it is.
There is a fellow I follow. I won't quote him. I won't give him any publicity, but he has been right on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And he basically says that the Israelis are now getting up to speed about Hamas, and will probably be able to neutralize them. It will be something to see. I'm not sure. I mean, Hamas isn't speaking. They're not talking.
For the most part, no. I mean, there were some statements from their leadership at the very beginning, but they haven't said much lately. But the problem is when it's talking about neutralizing Hamas, I'm not quite sure exactly what that means, because in practice, what you will end up seeing is, even if you get rid of I guess the estimates I've seen are 20 or 30, maybe 40,000 actual Hamas fighters, by obliterating the entire community of Gaza, you just created 150,000 more Hamas fighters. It's a cycle. It's a cycle that does not end until you stop killing people.
The intimation, and I'm not sure I buy it, is that they will, by neutralizing, I mean, stop make it so that they are no longer a fighting force.
Maybe
that they can carry on offensive activities.
But in the process, they're getting more unrest among the rest of the Palestinian population. They're getting more support for Hezbollah and some of the various militia groups that, for example, create the PMUs in Iraq, which are the primary forces of their like internal self-defense forces. And in various other countries that are getting more and more support because of the fact that they're doing this.
Well, the global South,
even if they succeed in technically eliminating Hamas, you've got 4 times as much support from other entities.
The global South certainly supports Hamas.
Well, maybe not even Hamas, but they certainly support the Palestinians.
I think they probably would say we understand Hamas. But you can't...
Understanding is not the same as supporting.
Well,
but I think that's probably true.
Of course, the word support, you'd have to qualify that. But I would say the sympathy in the global South, if maybe not in the presidential palace, but in the global South and the street, definitely supports Hamas.
Well, definitely with the Palestinians, yeah.
Interestingly, India is deeply allied with Israel about. When I say deeply allied, the government has really said, we are with you.
They've said that a few times.
I can understand a little, because India, I don't know if you follow Indian Punchline.
I look at it occasionally, yeah.
The guy who writes that, I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Basically said that he doesn't understand India, and he's not Muslim, but he said that he doesn't understand India going all out for Israel, but he says he understands that there are militant groups that attack India and want to make the subcontinent completely Muslim.
There have been some terrorist attacks in India over the years, but I think it's kind of counterproductive for India to go all out in favor of Israel because of the fact that there's like 100 million Indian citizens who are Muslims. Yeah. They back when the country split into India and Pakistan decades ago, most of the Indian Muslims did flee into Bangladesh and Pakistan, but there's still a significant number there.
Yeah.
And they always will be. I mean, there have been for 1,000 years.
1,000?
Something like that,
It was
yeah.
a little after the millennium.
Maybe a little later, maybe a little bit later. But, I mean, they started seeing the first real Muslim dynasties in India, maybe in the 1200s, I guess. It was a while ago. They've been established for a long time.
Yeah, of course, the Modi's party is a Hindu, hard Hindu
Yeah.
party. So that would be, it's understandable. Was it a good idea? Well, that's another question.
Exactly. He succeeded in a political sense, but in the long run, will it benefit India as a whole? Maybe not. I mean, I saw a map a couple of days ago showing how the vote split in India is, and Modi's party is very much concentrated in the Hindi-speaking areas of India.
Well, that'd be
Almost all of the rest of the India is they're not necessarily supporting Muslim parties, but they're supporting other parties. Some of them are Muslim parties.
Where would you say the concentration is geographically
For Modi,
for Modi?
from what the map showed, it's in the if you know the triangle of India.
Yeah.
It's up here in the northwestern corner, but it's not all the way northwest. It's like the western half of the Ganges Valley and Maharashtra, like down to maybe to Goa, but doesn't reach Goa. So it's like halfway down the west coast there, and everything around it is the majority are other parties, and there's a pocket over in the Assam area. There's also Modi territory.
It's also what?
Modi territory, his party. BJP,
But
they
it's
call
he has no significant problem losing a vote, probably, unless the economy got so bad.
At this point, yeah,
So he has a very good majority.
he does.
It looks like this is for the situation in Hamas Israel is going to continue for a while anyway.
It probably will. Have you heard of the latest congressional resolution?
Oh, of course, yes.
The one that they keep playing games to wave the flag of how much they support Israel. I mean, fortunately, it's mostly just word wanking. But when you have that kind of mentality, they don't seem to recognize that you have a tendency to alienate people who might otherwise be on the fence. And I'm specifically referring to Senate Resolution 51, was it? I think it was. No, that's the other one. Senate Resolution 51 is the one actually I like. It's actually, despite the fact that it's Rand Paul's.
Gosh! Oh my God! Rand Paul!
Because of the fact that it calls about pulling us out of Syria,
Yeah.
which should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
But the other resolution, I want to say it's 800 something actually. It's a House resolution,
House
which they did pass by a huge majority, that specifically declares that any anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, which is total nonsense.
Well,
By definition, if you support the Palestinians, you are supporting Semites.
who voted against that?
Mostly the Republicans, although not many of them.
No,
There were
no.
like 12 no
Thomas
votes.
Massey voted
He's one of
against
them, yes.
And he's like Rand Paul.
There's a couple
So,
of-
oh my gosh! How can you?
He voted against it. The squad voted against it, and that's pretty
the
much
squad?
it. Yes,
Did the squad?
most of them did.
'Cause
There were like 70 present votes that were mostly Democrats, which personally, to me, I think that's cowardice,
Yeah.
including most of our delegation. Almost all of them voted present. They were in our delegation. Presley voted no, and what's his name? Auchincloss voted yes, and everyone else voted present.
Auchincloss. Yeah, he would vote yes.
Well, he's our delegation's most APAC friendly representative.
Yes.
He's taken more than $100,000 from them.
Oh yeah. Okay, so
Unfortunately, Neal's number 2.
Neal,
Yep.
I because I sent to Neal, just as a sort of a test to see if he's alive. I sent him something saying, why don't you support the Prime Act? I don't know if you know what the Prime Act is.
No, I'm not
It's for supporting local agriculture.
Oh, good. Okay.
And
Yeah.
allowing local slaughtering rather than big feedlot types.
Oh, totally. That'd be a great idea. Absolutely. There's actually a proposal in Southbridge to create a slaughterhouse.
Okay, good.
It's moving slowly. We've been talking about it for some time. Mark Caron was kind of spearheading it while he was helping the town, but he's no longer in that function anymore. So it's kind of in limbo at the moment.
Okay, well, that's good. It'd be good to see it.
Yeah.
But it's speaking about Neal. He sent me, of course, the automatic. Love you. You're my constituent. And
Yeah, it's
glad to know
nothing.
you're talking to me.
Exactly.
About the Prime Act, nothing.
Of course not. I get exactly the same. I get exactly the same automatic email. It could be worse. I mean, a while ago, I don't know if I mentioned this last time we talked, but I sent an email to Warren about Ukraine, and no, I'm sorry. I sent an email to Warren about the situation in Israel, and she responded with an email about Ukraine.
Well, what's his name? I thought I was in what's his name's district, McGovern.
Yeah.
And he said, in fact, I got one of his things. Let me be clear. I've always been the peace guy.
Yeah.
About Ukraine, but we've got to stand with Ukraine. Oh,
that's contradictory to peace, there, Jim.
It's the U.S. government. It's the U.S. Senate. What do you want? But I did see something that said Elizabeth Warren, something like Elizabeth Warren, America's foremost Karen.
Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, I think she has a lot of competition in that category. So.
Well, don't sell my senator short. I mean, she's making an effort, and I'm proud of her for that. Well, I'm not.
She's making an effort to what? Climb the stairs?
No, she's amazing.
I mean, I think it's gotten to the point where we're starting to really see, unfortunately, how bankrupt the Democratic Party has become. It's gotten to the point where even for the most part, with the exception maybe of a handful of people, the long-term ones who have for the longest time espoused the more liberal attitudes don't stand up when it really matters. Some of the ones in the squad still do, because they haven't been there that long, I think, for the most part. And I think some of them don't really care what the hierarchy thinks, which is a good thing. But ironically, we are seeing the ones that are saying the right things about all of this warmongering are the ones on the far left and on the far right. Everyone else in the middle has sold out, whether you're Democrat or Republican.
Oh yeah.
Shocker. I heard that in the background there. Yeah, totally. And that's unfortunately the case. And we need to change all of them.
Again, it's the we.
They need to go.
They need
to go. In this case, I mean the voters. Need to get rid of them all.
We do not really represent voters that much. I wish on that subject, I wish we did.
Yeah, me too.
But it's not a we. It's sad. It's truly sad that we're courting nuclear war even.
Yeah.
And it probably isn't going to change. I think in the next month we might see some movement on Ukraine. Maybe the Ukrainian army will say, "Okay, Zelensky, go to the rest home." And he owns a lot of property overseas.
Yeah, I know he does. In several countries. In fact, didn't he several months ago? Wasn't he given UK citizenship several months ago?
It would not shock.
I thought I saw that in passing.
I know. I would not. You telling me that is not going to cause me to go to the hospital to get a pacemaker.
No, unfortunately, so many of the world leaders have so little loyalty to the countries that they're in that I think many of them probably have multiple citizenships.
Oh, I wouldn't.
And we should be really skeptical of anybody who's a major player who has multiple citizenships.
And yep.
I mean, because of the way the game is set up to pit nations against each other.
If I'm sorry that we're out of time, but that would have been a good subject.
It would have been, yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we might get to it next month.
If we remember. If we're here.
If we're here. So this has been Richard Morchoe, Gus Steeves, The Longer Report, and see you in January.
Happy holidays. Or for whatever holidays you celebrate.